Hey everyone, it's Matt here, and I hope you've had a happy holidays. And before we start the episode, I want to mention a few things. So, this was initially recorded on November 3rd, and the reason why it took so long to come out is because in the editing room I noticed that there was some issues with the audio levels, and so tried to make them as close to each other as I could, but that ended up taking such a long time that, well, we're releasing this now. But don't you worry, because tomorrow we will be releasing the next episode of Doctor Whomst, which will be the Flux episodes 2 through 6. And follow us on all of our different social media accounts to find out when the next episode will come up, which will be us talking about the New Year special. So, without further ado, let's get to the episode. Hey everyone, it has been a while. I'm Matt, and I'm here along with...
Tristan.
So, Tristan, it has been a very long time. Our schedules have been very hectic, and somehow we've managed to, because we have to multitask here, we're combining a Halloween special, a Halloween episode, with a Doctor Who Wednesday to form the ultimate Doctor Who Halloween special that I think was good. I didn't have as many spooks as I would have thought, being literally called the Halloween Apocalypse.
Right.
I thought it was relatively light on the spooks. I'm not saying that, don't get me wrong, the makeup is fantastic. Bringing the Weeping Angels back is a lot. But, it could have just not happened on Halloween, if I'm keeping it honest, like keeping it real.
Yeah, I don't think anything's really felt Halloween-y.
Other than the fact that, there were kids in costume, but so what? Go to a con. There were kids in... Oh, there was a drunk guy at your door who wasn't in costume. Yeah, okay.
What are you knocking on people's doors for?
Live in the city.
Just giving out candy.
Get the fuck... And so,
I don't even have a costume. Neither do you.
What was weird
Get out of my house!
What was weird is, I don't know if you saw this on social media. I know you don't really have a Twitter, but maybe you saw it on YouTube or something. They took that clip of him talking to the kids and then him talking to the drunk guy, and they cut it up, and the BBC promoted it as a really funny clip.
Huh.
And I didn't see it that way. It's funny in the greater context of the episode, because I kind of see how, well-natured this guy is, how funny he is, and how this pissed him off. But as a one-off clip, it was not funny. And I was actually kind of like, uh-oh. And funnily enough, in seeing the entire episode, I was like, oh no, I like Dan. I don't know anything about Dan. They have not told us much about Dan. But I like the character. He's like a fun little kind of, you have the seriousness of the Doctor and Yaz, and he's just kind of like, so apparently a dog just told me I'm unimportant.
Right, yeah.
So I don't know what to do about it.
He feels in the way that, what's so important about you? It kind of gave me flashbacks to Donna with 10. Being like, I'm just ordinary. What the hell's so important about me?
Well, it's just really funny to throw that on its head, which I've seen that done in other forms of media, but it's still fun to see it here, of just someone telling him, you're not important at all. But to go so far to be like, you're actually very insignificant.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit. By the way, the dog's named, right. Carvanista. I don't know why. Usually when I see names oh, this is don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, what significance does the Sontaran name have or something like that. But I was like, really? He doesn't look like a Carvanista. I don't know what I would call him, but are you gonna ever remember his name? Or are you gonna call him
Hubaka?
Is that what you were calling him? I
mean, it is now.
I called him Dude Baka because he's just very much more of a man than a dog. Although he knows what dogs are. So it seems like it seems like from the
He's very offended at being called one.
Which confused me. I'm like, wait, so did dogs evolve, and because you can go through time now, they're just from the future or something?
Well,
no, because they very much literally the Doctor said man's best friend, you're literally a dog, and he didn't shoot her immediately.
Right, yeah.
So I was like, wait, are you actually legit dog people? You just don't want a human? So, because it was so weird. It was because, by the way, speaking of things that are weird, you were telling me this before, we began talking about this on the podcast. So you're not a fan, at the very least, of how they didn't really explain too much of what was going on. Yes, it's going to be a 6-episode serial here, where it's going to be 6 parts. It's a mini-series. But they didn't really explain much.
Once I kind of kept that in frame of mind, I'm not as, I don't know, I guess not as disappointed about it because like, okay, yes, of course there's going to be a bit of a slow build for the first episode.
But it's just so funny that they introduced Dogman, Carvanista, and just didn't even like, as if he was just a normal thing.
Well, yeah,
I mean, don't get me wrong.
aliens coming out of just new aliens appearing isn't like something that's just happened recently. Like I was fine with that. I guess it was just more of like the build up of the episode at the very beginning. Like even the doctor doesn't know what's going on, and usually it's like the doctor at least has some idea of like, oh, okay, I've kind of dealt with something like this before, and like we kind of either. And granted, we get filled in at the beginning of the episode, like how a lot of others begin. Like something bad happens, we as the audience see it, and then the doctor ends up running into it or experiencing it. But I guess in this case, it's like a completely new villain, so we have no idea. Like obviously, their ambition is. Actually, no, we don't even really know what their ambition is yet. Like, I would assume destruction of the universe because that's kind of what's happening, but
How funny would it be? They're just like, no, we're just taking the universe and we're moving it somewhere else. Why did you think we were destroying things? Well, I mean, you're kind of disrupting matter.
Floating in on themselves kind of makes it feel that way, but all right.
You're kind of disrupting matter and absorbing it into yourself to move it somewhere else. Duh. No, but the thing is, it's not so much that I have a problem just with the introduction of an alien, but the fact that they gave him like little tiny things to make you go, wait, so then are you really like a dog person? And they tried to act like we just knew him already. Like I don't know if he just appeared in like a Big Finish or something. But it was just very interesting that it was, and also, starting off the episode, like I have no problem starting an episode off with the Doctor already in the middle of something, but they did it in a way where it didn't wrap up the previous story in the first few minutes. It continued it, and that also threw me for a loop. Like we're learning throughout the episode early on that like she and Yaz are chasing Carvanista. But like we don't know.
I thought it was they were looking for Dan.
Yes,
for
and
some unbeknownst reason.
No, yes, but Yaz said we're looking for a man and a dog, and it turns out the dog is a man. Like because like literally like she's thinking, oh, I'm looking for a man and his dog, and it's kind of like, well, sort of. Actually, we're looking for like a dog person. Yes, so that's the thing. They're chasing after him, but we don't really know. Like you talked about them not giving too much info on specifically like the Flux, and I'm fine with that because we're learning as the Doctor is learning. That's pretty cool. That's fine. But it felt like they didn't give us information on almost anything that was really going on at any given time. Yet somehow you used the words that they were slow to me, like slow in giving information. Yet somehow the cuts between each and every scene and the pace of those were so fast that I actually was like, hold fuck on. I gotta breathe. What the fuck's happening?
Yeah, things on stage,
screen.
Yeah, things on screen are happening very quickly, but each scene in itself is giving us very little to go on as we propel through each scene.
Which it worked in one scene in particular. The scene with the man who I think we have his name. Something else I also felt frustrated by. I think they gave a lot of names for these characters on social media or just in general on websites. And I feel like it's kind of like, could you just tell me their names in full while I'm watching the episode? Because like I know that apparently Fluxman is named Swarm.
Right.
And
Doctor Who Red Skull?
He's fucking blue. I know. Literally all Tristan sees is a guy with like facial features similar to Red Skull, and he's been calling him Red Skull for like 2 fucking hours. And I'm telling him, I'm like, he's
because
blue.
In the right light it looks red and not blue. Or he's got like this kind
Swarm man. And so it's Swarm man, he's Swarm, and then the woman that he is with, that he has brought back, who seemingly was kind of like fob watched, like she didn't know that she was like not.
Yeah, which I believe he stated was his sister.
I that's what you said. I didn't get that vibe, so I was confused. Like I've seen pictures of them and they very much look like they're like the king and queen.
I could have sworn he said as he, brought her into being, like melting her human persona away, like, it is good to see you again, sister.
Probably. The point is that her name is Azure. She was Anna when she was human, but her name is Azure. I don't think he said her name, and if he did, it was kind of too quick to catch. But anywho, The point is that, again, like, a lot going on too quick, but the specific scenes in the observatory, especially when that dude bounces, because it's like, I there's nothing I can do here. It's going to eat through this observatory. I have to get out. Those
Right.
that kind of very quick, fast paced, like very dramatic moments. That to me felt perfect because
Yeah, well,
that's what
because
you
at that
want.
point, yeah, that kind of drew me in because I'm like, okay, now I know what kind, like, the threat has been identified. Now I know at least what we're going to be dealing with later on down the line. Like, it is a giant solar storm esque type thing that is going to destroy the universe. Because then I started thinking, well, oh, is this guy, controlling it from the inside? Is he a part of it? Like, because when he touches people, it felt like that was part of his power too.
Well, that's the thing. It very much seems like because his name is Swarm, he is a physical manifestation
Of
of the
right, the
flux.
flux, yeah.
What's interesting is the other guy said, the one who was like her companion, sort of, Anna, or Azare's companion. Um, he was like, "Oh, don't touch anything," when he like turned to nothingness, or like remattered himself. His matter was shifted and everything. Um, it was as if he could also, the swarm could control things around him, not just like, "Oh, don't touch me," like, don't even touch anything that I deem shift of, like, can shift your matter. It was super interesting, and I want to see how the Doctor can try to even deal with something like that. That's something very, I mean, it can become a bit of an issue, because I remember I think it was last season, no, 2 seasons ago, I remember that one villain who was like, "I am a god," and he was dealt with fairly easily through
Right,
hubris.
yeah.
I'm wondering if that's going to end up happening. But so you said you changed your opinion on this episode when you remembered that it was a 6 episode or a 6 part series. Did you know that from the get go, or did you find that out?
I think I knew it from the get go that it was a multi part series, and then I forgot, and I thought it was just a like hour and 13-minute special. So I'm like, why the fuck is this taking so long? And then during like the commercials, it was like, oh, part one. I'm like, oh right, it's a part one of a multi part series. I'm like, okay, I can forgive that because obviously they're going to take an episode to build up what's going on.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, okay, so this one, yeah, like I said before, like this one's a bit of a slow burn, but like by the end of it, obviously they're getting sucked into the swarm, and the Doctor's like, huh. Even it was interesting. I kind of like the take some energy from the heart of the TARDIS. That usually works when we're in deep shit, and it did absolutely nothing. And I'm like, oh,
The Doctor
all
looks
right,
right at the camera, so it seems like we're fluxed, ladies
yeah.
and
So
gentlemen.
exactly.
Um, and then
Roll guitar riff and drum beat and start the new episode.
basically, so something
But
else that I
yeah,
forgot, by the way,
yeah.
I told this to you before we began the episode. I forgot that the 6 parter is not the end of Jodie Whittaker as the 13th Doctor, and I'm very happy about that, because it would be, even though it's only 1 episode in, I'm just calling it, it would be way too much to try to cram in the end of the Doctor in all of
Yeah,
this.
in this as well.
I
Right.
feel like it would be too much. It would be weird if it was just tacked on to the last 10 minutes of a special,
Yeah, I
or
like I
the sixth part
with
rather.
like I would say this with any Doctor, but I also say with Jodie, like she deserves her own like send off, like at least an episode or two for the send off.
And it does seem as if in 2022, some of you aren't aware, I might have also been aware and forgot this, we are getting 3 specials in 2022. Interestingly enough, one on January 1st, which will mark their new kind of shift that they've been doing for a bit now into New Year's specials, but at the same time also being less than a month after the end of this 6 parter. And I have to say, despite it being a little slow, I am actually very happy that they are doing something a bit different with Doctor Who. I feel weird that they randomly changed, they're not calling this series 13, they're just calling it Flux. And while I understand that the Flux is kind of, obviously very important, because it's the entire show, the entire series is going to be about the flux, but I do feel weird them changing now in the middle of a Doctor's run, whereas I feel like a brand new, unless they're going to keep on doing stuff like this in the future, like more serial based
Right.
as miniseries, unless they're going to do this in the future, it seems weird to randomly be like, this one's Flux, and then what do you do next time? Like, do you
Right.
just, like, what name do you pick out of a hat next time of villains that's going to appear in that season, to go, no, it's going to be this version? But I'm still happy they did it either way, though, even though, again, I think it's a bit too early. But I'm happy because we're at a point where it's like, how many series are you gonna have? Series 99, series 49? Like, at what point are you gonna go, okay, we have to some new fans, it might seem a little off-putting to think, wait, do I have to watch 12 other series to jump into this, when in theory, if you never watched an episode of Doctor Who before, there's a lot here that you don't know what's going on. But even if you do, like us, even if you've watched every new, so in a way, it's like, okay, this is new to everyone. It's not like, and they didn't really, even though they showed the Sontarans and the Weeping Angels, they didn't introduce them in a way. I love the Weeping Angels. Again, made it a bit more spooky for the Halloween apocalypse. But at the same time, they didn't introduce them in a way that they introduced them in a way that you would, if you were watching, let's say, like series 5, which I started with series 5. When I saw the Weeping Angels, I was like, who the fuck is that? What monsters are these? I want to see where they originated from, if this isn't their first episode, which they referenced them in a way that showed that there were more episodes with them even before series 5, again, when I started. So in this case, they're referencing monsters. They're not necessarily like putting a little comic book note up top that says you could read more about them. They're not doing that, but at the same time, it's still really cool that they can both introduce them but not have it be bogged down in a way where you have to be like bogged down by lore. The one thing that I think would confuse people new to the show, and even us, I guess, technically, even though it's something that that Moffat has done before, it was still done very oddly here, is the woman who appeared to say, "Doctor, I didn't expect you here." And I'm like, did they like date or something?
Right, yeah,
It was a weird vibe, right? She just gave off a very strange vibe.
Yeah, well, because, I mean, she feels like she doesn't remember who she was, like you said, kind of like the fob watch deal, but
that's what's weird. It wasn't the same woman. It was a completely different woman who was just like, "Oh, doctor,
I
taking
kept feeling...
use the word taking the long way around," which I've heard that before, and I'm like, wait, why are we bringing that line back up? That's not Sally Sparrow.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because that's interesting. I was actually watching the special with my mother because she likes Doctor Who as well, and that same woman who gets dragged into the house.
Yeah, that woman was the date. Because there's that one woman who was, Dan was talking her up at the museum, and she was like, "Dan, you don't work here," and Dan was like, "But what if I didn't?"
Right.
And still said cool stuff. And she was like, "You don't work here, Dan." He's like, "But what if
the other woman got
time looped
by the
again,
angel?"
Seemingly, because literally she said, "Oh, I'm taking the long way around." And I was like, "Wait, how do you know that phrase? Have you been dealing with the Weeping Angels?" And then we saw Weeping Angels, and then they tapped her again, and she's somewhere in time. And I'm like, bro, how many times are you gonna hurt this poor woman? You've already done this to her once. What are you doing?
Right. And so that house that she gets dragged into, my mom had actually commented, like, that kind of looks like the house from Blink, and it has similar architecture. I was like, at first I was like, no.
But there's also no Weeping Angels in the houses of this time. It's just
it's
two Fluxes, Swarm and Ozrai, being like, "We're gonna have fun with you." And I'm like, first of all, why did that sound sexual? Secondly,
this is not the Halloween party that I signed up for.
Why yeah, right? Why did we randomly mess with Dan's girlfriend? Like, I have a feeling that maybe they're trying to be like, no. It's just a coincidence. You don't have, don't question it. It's just
she was used as leverage later.
No, I don't think they're even going to do that. I mean, maybe, but like, why do they give a shit about Dan?
Right, no, I know. Well, that's the other thing. I'm like, why does anybody give a shit about Dan right now?
Well, no, the Doctor gives a shit because Dan is a human person.
Well, obviously. Like, other than being like, you are a human and I will save you.
I think that was it. I think it was
feels
just...
like there's supposed to be more to that, which we're not aware of yet.
Well,
obviously.
The way that they described it, which I'm going to believe them on this so far, they were like, Carvanista was like, "Hey, listen, I ended up getting here an hour earlier." Very much like Dragon Ball Z time travel. Like, I got here earlier than the rest, and then I kind of... So he's like, so I just kidnapped a human first. Because, like, well, if I'm here, what am I going to do? Am I going to go get some kibbles and bits, or I'm going to fucking kidnap some humans? So instead of, getting some food, he just kidnapped a human. And then once he took him off world, that's when the Doctor was like, "I found you, been fucking looking for you." And I guess because they've had a beef or something. And that's when Carvanista was like, no, I was sent here to save a one human.
Right.
And you didn't tell him? I did not. Which, by the way, is also frustrating because, like, I get it, but at the same time, because we're experiencing this through Dan's eyes, it felt like it was also trying to just wait for us to catch up and trick us until the doctor could get there. Like,
Yeah.
it was kind of a bit too long for me to wait, in my opinion. Not that, I don't need everything given to me at once, but like, oh my God, you really couldn't have just looked at Dan in the face and been like, hey, you idiot, I'm trying to save you. What does that mean? And then walk away. Give us a little bit of the bone treat. Like the dog bone treats. Give us a little bit of those. Just a little tiny nibble. But it's like, we couldn't even do that. He just had to be a complete asshole to Dan.
Yeah.
And then walk away, making us think, well, he's clearly a bad man, dog. And It turns out, no, he's actually saving. It's like, okay, that took a while. Because this was an hour and 13. You and I watched the quote-unquote director's cut, or whatever they called it, the extended cut. That's the word that they used. It was on BBC America. I don't know what... Because you and I didn't see it when it aired.
Right, we didn't see it live.
Yeah, we were too busy partying. And by partying, I mean we were home.
Yes.
I took a nap, and were you on a train? You were already home, I think, right? You were just doing something completely different, and I was like, yo, Doctor Who's special? And you were like, oops.
Yeah, I was like, oh, right, I did want to watch that. Oh, shit, it's 3 a.m.
Well, hold on. No. That's not what happened. I messaged you after I took a nap and I didn't watch it. And then I said, Tristan, this was at 12 at night or 1 a.m. I said, Tristan, at 3 a.m, they're re-airing the episode. You should watch it, because in my mind, I knew you'd be awake at 3 a.m.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong. I haven't been recently, but I was at that point. I was like, fuck, right, Matt's right. I should do that. And then I think I was playing Persona 5 Royal or something, and I completely...
Wow.
All right, whatever, man. You didn't watch it either, so don't wow me.
You've already played that game.
No, I played the first one.
I didn't play Pokemon Red. I'm playing Pokemon Yellow.
I will smack you.
But yeah, so back to that Doctor Who thing. So no, I like Dan. I really do. But I just think that, like, this was more of a happenstance. That's the thing. I can accept, hey, it was a happenstance that it was just Dan. We have to make the two things happen. It was just a complete another accident that they randomly picked up a dude from Liverpool. It happens. It just happens.
I mean, the Doctor usually picks up people from London or the UK in general.
I was very happy you corrected yourself, because I don't know if you're right, and I don't want to be I don't want to be in a world. I don't want to be on a podcast with you when you're that wrong, because I'm like, I don't want people from the general UK area saying shitty things to us on the internet.
Because I'm sure there's a huge audience for us in the UK.
First of all, we don't have a huge audience in general. But it does not change the fact that 5 people online could still be very mean.
It's okay. The Flux could really help us out with that. I mean, if everything in the universe is reatomized, I mean, I don't know. Maybe we'll come out on the other end with more followers. Who knows?
No, actually, no. What'll happen is all of everything, entertainment, time, and space, will be in one ball. So people will be forced to listen to this, and they'll be so pissed. Anyway, so but seriously though, I'm okay with the happenstance of Dan. What a lovely sentence. But it confuses me. It's a bit too much happenstance, in my opinion, that they just so happened to kidnap the woman that he wanted to get drinks with. Maybe they're going to use them as leverage because they know about the Doctor being near Dan, so it's going to try to be like a thing. But I really think, but I don't know why, like, what is the purpose? What is the need to kidnap her, other than to move the plot along? Yeah.
I mean, that's what makes me think that Dan is more important than they're letting on right now.
He's just a guy from Liverpool, Tristan.
I know, but like half the companions that the Doctor meets are just a person from the UK.
And then all of a sudden they turn out to be the Doctor Master Donna.
Not all of them, but you know, it happens.
He's Rose Tyler's second cousin.
Okay.
Twice removed. I really hope that Dan I really hope that Dan doesn't matter. I like that Dan doesn't matter. I just love like when companions just certain plot elements just aren't part of this bigger structural saving the universe, end of the universe kind of thread, you know?
Does it make you feel more included?
Yes.
Does it make you feel like I could be the next companion?
Yes. You have family from the UK. You were so close.
I know, right?
now they moved you here, and you have to deal with the U.S. Doctor. Which, don't get me wrong, Paul McGann is great, but that story.
Well, it's funny because I also feel sort of similar about I mean, I don't know, maybe not similar. Similar might not be the right word, but um, the main villains being, telepathically linked to the Doctor and saying, "Oh, you don't remember any of our battles." It's like, I've been waiting for you, and the Doctor's like, I'm sorry, I've fought a lot of evil in the universe. Who dis?
Well, I want it to be like that. I wish she gave that impression and that vibe, but it was very much like I've wiped your memories, even though I was in a very weak place as I was in a prison. But don't you worry, because I was planning this from day one, and I'm like, could you shut the fuck up?
I kind of would have because I think we were talking a little bit about it earlier, and the idea was, I think you had come up with the idea that, continuing off from the last series, that this is a villain that the Doctor had faced before the Doctor was even part of our universe.
Yes, the Doctor that we know, starting from a Hartnell, this is probably a pre that Doctor villain, because I don't think they would oddly jump back to Time War shenanigans.
Right.
And apparently the only two biggest wars in the universe, I'm sure someone who's read a novel is going to get mad at me, but the two biggest wars in the universe were the Time War and maybe something before the Doctor was the Doctor we know. Because literally, right. No, dude, for like a couple years, it was just like, man, the Time War. And it's just like, yeah. Did you ever experience anything like really traumatic before the Time War? No. Really? Ace is like looking down like, are you fucking serious, bro? No, my life was great before the Time War. And so like it was all, and don't get me wrong, I don't hate the Time War, but it was all just Time War. And so now it seems like honestly, even though I didn't like the story of the Doctor actually being a being from another universe, I didn't like it. But if you're going to introduce it, then at least follow up with it as long as you're the showrunner. Sure.
Right. Yeah.
You started it. Okay.
I guess I feel like I would have liked that better if the evil entity that we're dealing with now, if maybe if the Doctor was in the middle of something else, and then the Flux appears in our universe from another, and the villain is like, yes, I've returned to pursuing, I finally found you, it took all this time, instead of like escaping from prison. Granted, I don't even know if that prison was in our universe. I assume that it was, but
that's the thing. When it's, because talking about it absorbing the universe and everything, it has to be from ours, technically. Now that you just said that, it really registered with me. It has to be from our universe, because I don't think it would jump to a new universe after swallowing another universe. Like I don't think they would erase the idea of going to another universe before they even showed it off of what it could be. So I feel like unless, like, I feel like the Flux might be in our universe. Again, I don't know what it is, but if the Doctor doesn't remember it and no one around the Doctor is old enough to remind her of a previous incarnation of her that remembered it,
yeah, then
technically, I guess.
Well, that's the other thing. Like the dog people seem to be like, you don't know about the Flux? Like the Flux is the end of the universe. How the fuck do you not know about it?
No, and the dude and the swarm literally told her like, oh, I did a good job, basically in erasing her memories, seemingly. So it seems as if there's a gap in her memory. And with the other Doctor, too, it seems like there's a gap in her memory. Like, it seems as if the gap, like, if they're which in either universe, there is a gap in her memory because an organization seemed to have wiped her memory because of the fact that she was working for them undercover for X amount of Doctors before Hartnell that we did not know of. Again, I don't remember if they were in this universe or the next. All that matters is that she seemingly has fought the Flux once. Maybe we get the woman who played the Doctor that we never knew of to come back.
Right, yeah.
I hope. But at the same time, though, it is very interesting that everyone knows about the Flux and she doesn't. There has to be something that clouded her memory or mind and kind of pushed her away from it because... it is interesting that that it's also, like you said, it's strange that, kind of like he was in prison somehow. And then I mentioned that, it was all part of the Keikaku. It's all part of the plan. Yeah. And then he's just not in prison. And then we're all fine with this.
Right.
And the entire universe is just like, well, so the Flux is here. What, you never heard of the Flux? How stupid are you? Anyway, I'm leaving.
Yeah. And I guess like usually the doctor is the person that cues the audience. Like the companion is like, "Wait, what the fuck is going on?" And the doctor will be like, "Well, it's been a while, but I've dealt with this, once or twice before, so
And
I
so
know a
this
little
is
bit about it."
and this is the nice way to turn that story on its head, but I think that it's doing it in a way that's taking a
True.
bit too long to get to not the
The point.
point. Not I don't want to say the point because, looking at the next few episodes, they might not be getting to the point for a bit because,
Yeah.
depending on how because I think the doctor is going to be talking to other people who know of the Flux who are going to kind of clue her into what's going on.
Right.
My thing is it's not about the point. It's just about anything that we could like kind of dig our feet into and kind of feel like we're on solid ground.
Yeah.
It was very hard to get that this episode.
Right. Which is why the one thing I did like was the introduction of the Sontarans, because they're like, oh, there's going to be, war and chaos across the entire galaxy with this coming in. Of course we want a piece of this.
And the
Because
next
their
episode,
motivation was simple enough that it was like, oh, of course they're going to be on this. Like, they want chaos. They want fighting.
being the War of the Sontarans. So I
Right.
wonder what's going to happen there.
Oh, and also the jump back to 1820, 1860, something in there.
Yeah, it seems like well, that was basically establishing the creation of the museum, I think.
Right. And then, I mean, it looks like the next episode's going to take place in the past because the
Mm,
Sontarans look like they're going up against, like, soldiers with muskets.
right. What's funny to me is that the museum itself looks very spaceship like.
Huh.
The museum looks very strange, especially when
Yeah,
the
that's
the
interesting.
guy the guy who he was, drawing up the schematics and everything, who I believe was also potentially played by Dan's actor, because they had the same teeth. Like it looked like he was like a descendant of his or something.
Right,
And
Matt.
so, what?
What if? What if Dan's another doctor we don't know about?
Oh, did you not? Oh, I thought you also were thinking that. Yeah,
No,
I
like
was.
I that only dawned on me when you said, "Hey, the museum kind of looks like a spaceship." I'm like,
No, 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 no. I think that what probably happened is Sontarans are got in the past, and then this guy was near it, and this guy is looking at this other guy like, you don't fucking understand what we need to prepare for.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
Because he
Okay.
was like, we gotta have tunnels, and we gotta have sharks with freaking laser beams on their freaking heads, and we gotta have giant robots, and they have to be
Right.
sexual. Like, he was just like getting really in depth, and you were like, what the
Right.
fuck
And
is
he
he
seems.
preparing for?
Oh, okay. So maybe he knows
Something that he shouldn't
about the
know
incoming
because
doom of the Flux, and
which he
he's just
shouldn't
setting it up in the past because some
either
alien told him.
either the Flux or Sontarans or something. He knows something that he shouldn't because he was like, we
Yeah.
gotta prepare. And the other guy's like, prepare for what, you fucking weirdo?
Right. Exactly.
But that was very strange because I was like, why are we here? Why are we jumping
Yeah.
to the future? Why is there a
Right.
museum? Oh, that's Dan. Hi, Dan. That
Yeah,
was
like you said before, there's a lot of jumping around. Like the scenes are moving one into the other, but we don't have any idea why they piece together.
we don't know jack and or shit. And don't get me wrong, I would love to be able to watch future episodes and be like, it's all coming together now, and then be able to watch the first one again and get so much more out of it.
Right.
So if there is rewatchability out of this, as much as I have way too much shit to fucking watch, I was telling you about that before we began the episode. Too much shit, too much media,
Yeah.
too much to
Me too.
watch and play and read. But still, even then, it would be nice if I can go back to the series one day, maybe with friends, and they could be just as confused, and I can be like, "Oh, don't worry, it all comes together." But another thing too that I think is a bit of an issue. So even though this is a mini series, so it's not trying to be exactly like the older Doctor Who serials, still, obviously, one would compare the two. Even though serials were a thing back in the day, not just with Doctor Who, but you
Yeah.
still, because Doctor Who
Which is
used to,
kind of what came to mind when I was talking to you, and like you were like, "Oh, it's going to be a 6-part series." I'm like, "Oh, it feels like the old Who." Doctor Who like sets of episodes.
But the old Who, here's what old Who did better, in my opinion. And by the way, I'm not saying that I love old Who more. I do love new Who. I've enjoyed Jodie Whittaker. I've been a bit mixed on Chibnall, but I've really enjoyed Whittaker's work. But here's the issue, though, and this isn't with Whittaker. This is just the style of episode. Older serials, you've seen some, right, Tristan? I think you told me that they were airing them on Twitch randomly. I was like, what?
Yeah, I've seen stuff with Hartnell. I've seen the second Doctor. I've seen a bit of the third Doctor. I've seen a little bit of the fourth.
So they didn't edit the serials, right? Like they would like end an episode and then go to the next one, right?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Here's what I'm saying here. The serials were 25 minutes a pop.
Yeah.
So to try to sell me on, even though the other episodes aren't going to be an hour and 13, but to try to sell me on 6 1-hour long episodes, Chibnall does have experience. He worked on Broadchurch. I don't know if that was also an hour long each. I know you've seen a little bit of the series, right? Or did your mom see it?
I think my mom was watching it.
Oh, okay. My point is that I feel like it's going to be a bit harder watching 6 episodes straight of the same story over, like, connect and kind of weave together if we're going to get information at this pace. Now, again, maybe things slow down a little bit more, but if they're going to keep on, let's say, jumping scene to scene with information that we don't really pick up until episode 3 or 4, that's going to be 4 hours down the drain before we know what in the fuck is going on. So hopefully we start to know a bit more, so we know not really so much what we're dealing with, but at the very least how to wrangle people together or not have the Doctor get sidetracked with other stuff. Because in this episode they've set up the Flux so well that I would be sad if during 2, 3, 4, and even a little bit of 5 we're kind of sidetracked in other shit.
Right.
Even though it's one long series, still, I don't know if they're going to consistently... Because with the way the Flux is coming in, they're coming in real hot.
Yeah, like, it's already here.
Yeah, it's already here.
We were going to be like, oh, the Earth is about to be... I thought the Flux was still,
cooking.
light years away. And like, all right, we don't have a lot of time, but we've got some time before it's like at our doorstep. And at the end of this episode, the first one, the Flux is right on top of Earth. And we're like, oh, so we're fucked.
And then they were.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like it. So I don't know what they're gonna do with the rest of this series, but hopefully they don't do, because I've seen some other shows do this too, where it's like, oh no, it's the end of this and everything's going to be destroyed, and then they just kind of meander and do other things, like things that are still relevant to the overall plot or character development. Don't get me wrong, but like hopefully the War of the Sontarans doesn't take them away from the Flux for so long. We're kind of sitting around like, you kind of have Flux shit to deal with. Like, even though it's technically a completely overarching plot of
Right.
parts, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, hopefully they don't, like, secretly divvy it up.
Yeah. And I mean, I have no idea why the Weeping... Like, don't get me wrong, I was happy to see them, but I have no idea why the Angels are around either.
Exactly. And I am happy to learn what in the hell they're doing here, why they're here. Always great to see them back, especially because I think they were a bit overused. Even though Moffat made them, they were still a bit overused during his era, so I'm happy that they kind of cooled off on them a little bit, and now they're bringing them back.
Right.
I love them, but there was a bit too much of them, I think, during Moffat. Like, he just kept on bringing them back, I think, like, at least once per series.
Yeah.
So
it's funny. It's interesting for me because I started watching Doctor Who around 10, and, like, I always felt like the Daleks were a big part of 10, and then the Weeping Angels were a big part of 11. Granted, they're only, like, a one set of episodes with each of them, so I'm like, why did I make that distinction? But,
No, but I think it's because during 10, to be fair, they did have a lot of crossover stuff with Daleks. Like, if there was a big thing happening, like, the end of the world is here, it's just like, oi, what the fuck are you doing back there? Daleks, right back there, what the fuck are you doing? You trying to sneak into this end of the world shit, Daleks? What the fuck? And they're like, we just wanted to, like, murder you. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Get the fuck.
But I mean, like, 9 did that a lot. Like, 9 was a part of that, too.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, like, because they had one episode, the first, just call it Dalek, which I weep to this day every time I fucking watch it, and then they had like the whole big Dalek thing at the end of episode of 9's run. But 10, like, they weren't just Dalek episodes. Like, Daleks would just be like, surprise, Like 10 is in the
Surprise,
10.
motherfucker!
Yeah, no, 10 is in the shower, and it's just like, guess who, motherfucker? And he's like, oh, fucking hell. And then just locks the door. You know, the bathtub turns into the TARDIS. He's in the TARDIS naked. You hear a sound. He's like, "Oh, you've seen worse."
Oh my god.
And so that's the thing. Like it felt like during Ten's run, like if there was, I mean, during Ten's run, that's when they had the Daleks versus the Cybermen.
Right. Yeah. True.
But yeah. But anyway, so looking at this episode, I'm happy. That the Weeping Angels are back. I just want to know who the fuck that lady is and why she was so like her mind was like she wasn't all in, like she was like, oh, like I don't know, like something about her, she wasn't all in that exact time. Like her body was there, but her mind was in a different time period,
still trying to wrap around like, wait, I'm not where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, so like there's a lot of, I guess that's the one good thing about this episode, is that they're like, obviously we're asking questions, so that technically means we're engaged.
No, here's something funny. So I've heard some people say that they don't like the whole idea of a mystery box. Like something like an overarching thing that happens throughout the season, like like kind of like Bad Wolf,
right?
Or everything's a mystery box.
Yeah,
everything will not be explained in this episode.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because I don't want to say it's like, everybody watching Doctor Who now says this, because obviously that's not correct, but like
some of the loudest voices, I think, I don't know what you're gonna say, but
people that I hear, and like some people that I talk to, that they mention Doctor Who, and I'm like, oh, they're, what I tend to hear is like, oh, I hate watching an episode and not knowing anything of what the fuck is going on. And I'm like, all right, like I can get being frustrated with that. Like,
what episode is that said person?
Well, yeah, no, that's the thing. I didn't get their full explanation of like,
no,
well,
but
what were you watching when you
because I don't think I've ever felt that way throughout. I might not have liked stuff, but I don't think I've ever felt that way throughout the entirety of Chibnall's run. Again, there's stuff that I did not like or I did not want, but I don't think, because like, yeah, the stuff was weird with the Toad. Remember, like the weird interdimensional shit, the monster Tron, that was weird. But Doctor Who's been weird.
Right, yeah. Doctor Who's always been weird.
Yeah. So I don't know what that person was talking about. I'm very intrigued though, because in this case, were you gonna say? But in this case, you kind of get it because they just weren't.
Yeah, like a little bit. But then by the end of the episode, like I said, when the Flux is on our doorstep already, I'm like, oh, all right. How are we gonna deal with that? Like I'm drawn in enough to be like, okay, I want to see what happens next episode. Like I'm interested enough in this event, in this Flux event, that I want to know what happens.
It feels it feels like a Toonami event from back in the day. Doesn't it? Like, it just starts off with the Doctor being screwed, and it's just like
a little bit.
Who are the Flux? Find out today. Go play the Flux game on Flash, on Adobe Flash, on the Doctor Who website.
Christ. Yeah, like I'm not like I'm slightly frustrated, but I'm not frustrated to the point that I'm deterred from like, oh, all right, I don't want to watch this anymore. Like, no. I want to know what happens.
No, and I think that's the beauty of the episode at the very least. It wasn't as spooky as I would have liked. Too fast.
It seems odd that it's a Halloween special when it doesn't feel too much like Halloween, but maybe that'll play more into later episodes. I don't know.
Of course. No, I think you're right. And don't get me wrong, it's not like they didn't say. I mean, literally the fucking monster looked at the camera and said trick or treat. And I was like, thank God. Right. Now, well, I guess I love how this monster's in jail, but he's like, look, I have some very just real opinions on new horror versus old horror.
I know what
in cinema. Like, what? Like, he's just like, look, I'm just saying, all right, Rob Zombie, great singer, great artist, but not really a big fan of his take on Halloween. I'm just saying, I don't think he understood Michael Myers. It's like, okay, dude, whatever. That's fucking weird that you just know about Halloween.
Ready to destroy the universe.
Oh no, what if the Flux is just us hearing his movie takes?
Oh no.
Speaking of podcasts and the Flux, like like just the Flux is just him being like, just talking about how great like he'll like you in the Flux you'll have a movie playing, like let's say John Carpenter's Halloween, but it'll pause every frame and he'll point out different things about the cinematography.
Oh my god.
That honestly just kill me.
That would be a new level of hell.
Now, if that's what the Flux is here to do, like,
Just
wow.
obliterate everything. Just end it.
Yeah, no, like that's a lot. But I before we wrap things up, I want to talk about something that I found very interesting. You didn't notice it, I think, or maybe if you did, you didn't talk to me about it until right now. The way that they filmed everything, it felt very much like they had to rewrite this script because of COVID and because of COVID regulations. What are your thoughts on that? Did you notice
Yeah,
that?
I it was the first, like, the opening scene before they flung themselves into the TARDIS. I'm like, this is very low budget, but also like we got a lot of CG going, so like it's not low budget. I was very It was a little
Yeah.
jarring, and I was kind of
No,
confused.
that's the thing. The CG is not what's low budget. It was low manpower, not many people
Yeah,
needing to be in one scene at one time. Because
yeah, that too.
literally, no, that's the thing. That's what it was. Because in Doctor Who, right, it feels as if there's a lot of people on scene doing something. Even if you don't like, you would see the Doctor with maybe like 10 Cybermen, or the Doctor and 10
Right.
Daleks.
Yeah.
But in this case, it was very, very small, intimately filmed situations where it was like,
Right.
it's Dan and that one woman. It's
Yeah, it was
Dan
like
and that one
two or three
dude.
people, four
It's,
like on screen max at one
I
time.
think the most they maxed out were Dan and that pretending to be a tour guide, basically.
Oh, right.
That
Yeah,
was like
yeah.
the most
At the
people at
museum.
once. Yeah, at the
Right.
museum. Other than that, it seemed as if everyone that was actually having a speaking part, that was doing their thing, it was like you said, max 3, 4 people. I think the max other than that were 4 people, were like Dan and I think 3 kids, or when it was when it was Dogman and it was Dan,
Yeah.
it was
Dan Yaz and the Doctor.
yes, exactly. And that was it. And it was so interesting to think about, because you had that guy at the observatory, one man sitting with the computer voice. You end up having one Sontaran in a suit and another one not even in the same room as him.
Right.
Being Star Wars projected on the screen. Then you end up having, I mean, even when you have scenes with the swarm man, he's mostly CGI'd in from the looks of it.
Right.
Which, by the way, poor guy, for 2 reasons. First of all, the actor having to sit through all that goddamn makeup. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's absurd, right? That's the first. The second thing, I feel bad for him because I thought, and apparently the internet did too, it was not just me, he sounds very much like Paul Bettany, who's the actor who plays Vision, and originally the voice for Jarvis.
Right.
Specifically, we're talking about the MCU here, and it's hilarious because it's not him at all. Not a relative, no one close to him at all, but it just sounded so much like him. I was like, oh, well, that's clearly him. It was not.
Yeah. It was not.
Sam Spruill is his name, Spruell. So he's been in a bunch of stuff. I don't think anything that you would know, Tristan, but he's been in a bunch of stuff, and I just feel so bad because I'm just like, oh man, like everyone's like, literally people were tweeting at Paul Bettany like, oh my god, are you in this, are you in this, and imagine being Paul Bettany having to be like, no,
No.
I don't even watch the show, what's
Right.
happening,
Yeah.
like,
I not even aware that this was happening.
yeah. But no, but it very much feels like they had to film around COVID restrictions, and I wonder if that actually changed the plot at all and changed how they wrote the show, and and that if they kind of changed it to a 6 episode miniseries because of that.
Right.
Well, because it's interesting, because apparently they were set to film earlier, but then COVID and other issues related to filming under COVID kind of delayed them a bit. So I'm
Right.
wondering if they actually like switched a few things around, or were just like, you know what, maybe it's best to film this way. And I wonder if that kind of led to like why this first episode was kind of formatted the way it was. I would be very interested, if they're not able to talk about it now, one day if there's a book about this or an article or something. I would very much love to read about how they were able to do this. I'm sure they've said some things, but I have a feeling there's some things they just can't say for one reason or another. maybe they don't want to spoil it or something, the show.
Yeah.
But it would be very interesting one day if people can come out and be like, oh my god, so you'll never guess how this worked.
Right.
Because it would be very interesting, because you can just tell, even like watching other shows that I've seen filmed during the pandemic, you could really see the differences between, like, you know, how this was shot and who can be here and where, and even
Right.
like just how, like, I'm watching a little bit of The Walking Dead, so I'm seeing how zombies are filmed in a scene, because there's a lot of extras compared
Right.
to like other people, and what extras can be near who is very interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And how many zombies are on screen at once, usually, with some of the other main actors who can't get COVID, because if they do, the entire production shuts down, and they're in the middle of like filming a season or something. So it's very interesting stuff, and I want to see how that potentially affects future episodes. But either way, though, we're going to wrap this up here. Normally with Doctor Who, we would do, let's say, every week or every few weeks, but in this case, I think because it's such a short series, we wanted to start this off with a bang, and we'll be doing the last episode, kind of talking about the series as a whole when that airs, which will air on December 5th. So if you want to follow us, you can check all of our social media stuff down in the script box down below, and that will help you follow some of the other stuff that we do, podcasts and other fun little things on our other YouTube channels like gaming and whatnot, to kind of see what we're doing in between that time. So Tristan, anything you want to say before we wrap this one up?
No, I think I got everything.
All right, so love you all, take care, stay spooky, stay Doctor Who-y. I don't know. I don't remember the send-off that we did last time.
See you in the flux.
See you in the flux.